What up, everybody? This is the Ultimate Patriot / Dr. Football Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Dennis Tian. I'm coming to you remote tonight from my real live medical office in Dedham, Massachusetts. I am taking off this and I am putting on this. Joining me, as always, the CEO of Hedge Better, Justin Fine. Justin, it's getting harder and harder to wear this hat every week, my man.
I know.
What is going on?
Oh, you know what? I was thinking, after that week one, I was saying to somebody the other day, they gave us some false expectations because they've really just plummeted from that opening game against the Bengals back down to reality where everyone kind of thought they would be.
Yeah, 100% right. They look a lot like they did at the end of last year, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And it's unacceptable. It's not okay. I mean, that's the opening take. I mean, we're gonna get into the whole thing. We got a great episode coming up this week for you all. We're gonna talk about the Patriots, but Justin and I kind of talked about this week. We're gonna talk a little bit less about the Patriots moving forward because I don't think they're worth the kind of coverage that we have been giving them in terms of the time on this podcast. So we're going to spend more time talking about gambling because everyone loves that. And we're going to talk a little bit more on around the league. And we're going to try and see if we can talk less about the Pats because let's face it, Justin, it's like running in circles. I mean, that was a beatdown Sunday.
It was. And I mean, look, we're becoming broken records because it's just the same problems, the same things in and out. There's just any hope that we had that, Jacoby Brissett was going to come out and be the successful bridge quarterback and the Patriots were going to carry that opening season momentum, through the tough part of their schedule and kind of just, surprise everybody. Right. That's all just really faded away. And it's so disappointing because like you said, it just feels like we're playing meaningless football right now.
You know what, Justin? I warned y'all after that Cincinnati game that they would not beat a lot of teams if they played like that. I mean, that was kind of a perfect storm where everything went right.
Yep.
They caught a ton of breaks, and they caught a team totally asleep at the switch, and they still had to eke that one out. And, hey, they played a great game against Seattle the following week, but I think you could kind of see it turning at that point. And the last 2 weeks have just been absolutely gruesome, unwatchable football product.
Yeah.
Let's get to it, Justin. Let's talk about it. This is the opening take, the kickoff to set the table for the rest of the podcast. Justin, this is the 5th season since Tom Brady left Foxborough. We are pushing into a half of a decade since the Patriots have had to rebuild post Tom Brady. If they tank and suck this year, they will be into year 6, the second half of a decade since Brady left. And what I'm going to say, Justin, is that I can live with bad football. This team had a run of epic proportions, and we all knew that it wasn't going to last forever. I can deal with bad football. What I can't deal with is pointless football.
Yeah.
And this is right now, once again, pointless football. I don't know what the leadership, the management of this team was doing with the roster they built. Okay. To me, it doesn't feel like they put their best effort into building a team. I know they're rebuilding, but look across the league, right? Look across the league. Teams are rebuilding on the fly. The idea of a 3 to 5 year rebuild, that's 30 years ago. It's gone. Okay, you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Perfect example. They rebuilt faster post Tom Brady than you did in New England. Okay, you don't need to bottom out to rebuild a team anymore. So they did not put forth their best effort to rebuild this team this year. There are holes on this roster. They have the most cap room or among the most cap room in the league. They're at the bottom of the league in cash spending. And this is the garbage they put on the field where you can't even put your rookie quarterback out on the field because you're afraid it will ruin him. That's how bad it is. This roster is a disgrace. It's an embarrassment. It's a slap in the face to the fans that have supported this team for like 3 decades. And I'm getting it. Okay, it's a rebuild. There are going to be down times. I'm totally okay with bad football. Justin, I cannot stomach pointless football. What they did this year is one step above the plot for the movie Major League, the baseball movie Major League.
Yep.
They kick the can down the road to 2025. And to me, it is just outright offensive. What are your thoughts, Justin, on this?
Well, look, you mentioned something, some of these other teams in the NFL that are building quicker, right? And the Patriots going into year 5 now, not looking like they've made any improvements since when Tom Brady left. What are two things that teams that rebuild quickly accomplish, right? A, they sign big name free agents, which we have not done, right? And they draft impactful players that are impactful usually almost immediately, right? And at this point, we have confidence in Drake Maye. We haven't seen him play yet. He hasn't made an impact. And they're rookie wide receivers. They have not been awful, but they haven't done anything that stood out or dazzled me, right? There's nobody on this roster that you can say has came in and made an immediate impact through the draft, and become an immediate superstar, and they haven't signed any big name free agents. And those are the two things that teams that rebuild quickly do. We haven't done it, and we're sitting here trying to put Band-Aids on the problem instead of figure out a real long-term solution. And right now, we don't even know if we have a franchise quarterback in Drake Maye, because we're sitting there watching Jacoby Brissett, throw for a half a touchdown a game. And it's just getting ridiculous.
I'm going to push back on one thing you just said.
Yeah.
You said they put Band-Aids. Did they even put Band-Aids? They didn't put anything. Their strategy was more like, let it bleed.
Yeah.
Let's kick the can down the road. We're not going to be good this year. So let's kick the can down the road to 25. And then we'll deal with it. They didn't even try. I would welcome a couple Band-Aids at this point. A friggin' NFL caliber tackle, a bottom 20 tackle would be a huge upgrade for this team right now. They didn't even do that.
No, they didn't. I mean, look, I'm hoping they got the coaching right? Because, when you talk about a rebuild, the third element, I think that's part of that is the coaching and the culture, right? And so I really hope they got that right. We've seen some positive signs. We can't really make an accurate assessment yet, but like I look in, I just see a team that has really done not much for a team that should be in a hurry to do a lot, and it's getting a little frustrating at this point.
It's year 5.
Yeah,
year 5 since Brady walked out that door. So the excuse of, we're just starting to rebuild, I'm sorry, that is just not a valid excuse at this point. I'm a season ticket holder, and I've been through some horrible years. There have been some great years, obviously, too. Yeah. But I've gone to every game. I went to every game in 2000. They were 5-11. I went to every game last year. They were 4-13. 91, 92, 93. I was a kid. I think I went to almost every game. I am more than willing to go down there and watch bad football. I'm going to tell you something. I might not go down this week if Jacoby Brissett is a starting quarterback, because I just look at it as pointless. We're not trying to win. We're not trying to develop our guy. We made the decision to put him in bubble wrap before the season started. Yeah. And even though he is clearly the best player on the roster, on this pathetic roster offensively, he's not playing. How am I supposed to be engaged as a fan? I know they can't make decision based on what the fans feel, but don't tell me that doesn't trigger down to the locker room as well.
You're 100% right. If you're a player on that team, you want the best quarterback out there. And look, the thing to me that's getting, a little ridiculous is I look at it and I say, okay, Drake Maye was the 3rd overall pick, the 3rd quarterback off the board, right? And the other 2 quarterbacks above him, instant impact, right? Instant playing time. Like, in the whole draft period leading up to that, it was always those big 3. Some people said they were interchangeable. Some people were arguing who could go where, right? Some people were arguing who the actual best was out of the 3. Why are those guys able to go out there with I look at the Commanders roster and I say to myself, like, that's probably on par with the Patriots roster. Like, that's not a talented roster, right? You're able to throw these other quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, they're out there and they're making an impact. They're playing, and you're starting to get a good look at what you have. And we're sitting here with Drake Maye, slowly letting our season slip away. I don't understand. It was either keep Jacoby Brissett in there to compete and keep your chances of playing late into the season, playing meaningful football alive, which he's not doing, or it was put Drake Maye in and let him develop and let's see what we got. So neither of those are happening.
Exactly. And to me, Justin, I like Drake May a lot. Like I have from before the draft, he was the guy I wanted.
Yeah.
But I'm almost at the point now where I'm saying to myself, if you really felt like this team was so bad, you couldn't put Drake May out on the field, maybe you shouldn't have drafted him. Maybe they should have drafted Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr., or one of those other offensive tackles, and rolled with Brissett this whole season. Because if it's that bad, why even take the quarterback at this point if you can't even develop it?
I just, do you honestly think it's because they think they're that bad? Like, I can't see that. I don't view them as like a bottom two, bottom three, like roster overall. I think they have a better roster than a couple of teams in this league. I just think their offense is so stagnant right now, and they're not giving it a chance because they're letting Jacoby Brissett, bop around and just completely stall everything.
Well, actually, this was going to be the next take, so you just segued perfectly into it. But I agree with you. I don't think this roster is as bad as it has shown
No.
in these first 4 games, even on offense. And I will go one step further, Justin. Their offensive line is not that bad. They are settled at 4 of the 5 positions on their offensive line. Now, granted, the worst position to have a hole is left tackle.
Right.
But they have stability at the other 4 positions, and they have some depth. Okay, look across the league.
Mm-hmm.
How many teams have 5 Pro Bowl caliber starters rolling on their offensive line? Let me answer that for you. None.
Right.
So the idea that because they have one less than adequate position at left tackle is going to paralyze this team, I think is BS. A huge part of the problem with this offensive line is Jacoby Brissett. It is 100% the fact that he holds the ball too long. He can't throw downfield, so defenses don't have to respect that. He can't throw accurately downfield.
Yeah.
He has no mobility, so they don't have to worry really about that. And he has been inaccurate at times, and he's missed open guys. Nobody fears their passing game, so these guys are able to tee off on Brissett.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect storm. This offensive line is not as bad as it looks.
I totally agree. And I really think a change of quarterback, everybody would look a little better. I think the wide receivers would look a little better. I think Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper would look a little bit better. I think if that offense plays a little bit better, it'll help that defense out a little bit more. I mean, everything is going to elevate, I think, when you get a quarterback in there that can actually make defenses respect you, actually, move the ball down the field and score. And from what we've heard in, the reports coming out of the practices of that, Drake May is the guy, right? He's the real deal. So why are we waiting? What are we waiting for at this point to take that next step, to be 1-6, 1-7, have your season completely over with?
I can answer that. And it's the best I can guess. It's that I think that they have a philosophical objection to putting a rookie quarterback in there because of the quote unquote Green Bay system that Elliott Wolf brought with him. I think Van Pelt wants to run the offense through his guy, Brissett. And I think that it is more about that than the simple fact of just playing the best player. I mean, this is sports. The best player is supposed to play. It's Occam's razor.
Yeah.
It's simple. Play the best guy. No. They have this quote unquote brain trust. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mayo, Wolf, Van Pelt that went into this year making this decision that Maye was not going to see the field until late in the season or maybe next season. And I think it is ridiculous because, yes, he has been the best quarterback on this roster in training camp, the preseason. And I don't know if you heard Jerod Mayo's press conference this week, but he said it again. He has outperformed Jacoby Brissett. Then why is he not out on the field?
I know what you're saying, the Green Bay mentality. I don't think it applies in this circumstance. The Green Bay mentality, everyone wants to say, oh, that was the mentality. It worked. I mean, look at who you wound up having. You went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, right? Like,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, it's very easy to say, oh, it worked. Like, I don't think we can take that same approach here. We don't have an all-pro quarterback ahead of the guy that we just drafted. And those teams were all playing meaningful football, right? The Packers were always competitive. They were always in the playoff hunt or in the playoffs. Like, it was much easier to say, oh, we're going to let the guy we just drafted sit a year or two. So it's not the same situation at all. It
really isn't. And I think that, as we alluded to last week, like every thing should go to its own ability. If Drake May needed protecting, I would say, yes, protect him. When all the reports are and everything we've seen is that he's the better player, then at some point you're going to have to cut the cord and put him in there. This is like when parents do everything for their kids and then their kids grow up with without basic social skills. They don't know how to talk to anyone or do anything for themselves.
Right.
Because the parents did it. You can't protect this guy forever. At some point you have to throw him out there, and it's going to be rough. And it's going to be ugly, and he's going to get hit, but he's also going to develop. Look how much Caleb Williams has already improved in 4 games. Jaden Daniels has already improved. Even Bo Nix is looking a little better. These guys they're not there yet, but they're showing signs of progress. At some point, you have to cut the cord and put Maye out there. And for people that think, oh, we're gonna tank this year and we'll draft the best tackle and we're gonna sign a free agents. You're gonna throw Drake Maye out there next year with a bunch of free agents and a rookie offensive tackle and a bunch of wheels in motion, and you think that's gonna be at a better landing spot with no NFL experience? You're crazy. Put the kid out there. I guarantee you this offensive line, this whole offense will look light years better when you have a quarterback that defenses at least have to respect a couple facets of their game, which unfortunately they don't for Jacoby Brissett.
Exactly. I would love to see. I mean, look, I had said I wanted to see Maye out there for the second half of the 49ers game if, the first half ended and it wasn't really competitive, right? And that's exactly what it was. They were down multiple scores in the second half. And I actually really was hopeful. I said, wow, I hope they put Maye out there for the second half. And we just got more of the same. The second half was worse than the first. And
agreed.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are we really doing? Like, you talk about how it can go poorly for Drake Maye, but like, can it really be any worse than it is right now?
You know what, Justin? Even if it is worse than what it is right now, that's part of the process of developing Drake Maye. I can get behind that as a fan. I think this team in the locker room can get behind that. I think everyone can accept that when Drake Maye gets in there, it might look worse. It might. I mean, you're right. It's hard to look worse when they're that bad, right? 120 passing yards a game. That's terrible. But even if it did look worse, it's part of the process. Caleb Williams has had some awful moments in his first 3 or 4 games.
Yes.
You know what, though? That's valuable to him. It's part of the process of developing a young quarterback. It's just time to cut the cord. And I'll say this, Alex Van Pelt and his system, can literally take a hike. I don't want to hear it. I think he is like one and done here, most likely. I think you already can see it. I'm starting to have major concerns about the way they're scheming offense and what the offense looks like in terms of how they're coaching it. I mean, they're going to throw him out the door as soon as they get the chance to bring in someone better. That's a fact. So I hope they're not making decisions based on his input.
Well, you know what? One thing you talk about that. One thing that we've seen, right, that I think, was probably a reoccurring theme with a lot of these young quarterbacks who are drafted in high regard they wind up struggling to find their footing in the league, is you see a lot of turnover, right? Like, if you bring a young quarterback in and he's got to go through multiple OCs, multiple head coaches, right? Like, that's awful for their development. And so I really hope the plan isn't to bring Drake Maye in under Alex Van Pelt and then have him start the next year under potentially a completely new OC. Like, I think you're taking 2 steps backwards at that point.
You might be, but I don't think they had a choice. I don't think they ever wanted Alex Van Pelt to be their offensive coordinator. I think that they were kind of stuck with him. I mean, I think they literally tried to bring in like 10 other guys. And I feel like when you're on your 10th choice, and let's be clear about one thing. This has been really bad the first 4 games. And as bad as they are, I don't believe they're as bad as they've looked. And at some point you have to put the finger at Van Pelt and say, what are you guys doing? This system he has. I heard some data on one of the radio shows last week that Alex Van Pelt's offenses are historically among the league's highest, most sacked quarterbacks. And it's like, and you're seeing that again right here. Schematically, I don't know what they're really doing, Justin. And I think it's I just feel like, is it less than ideal? Yeah, it's less than ideal. But if they get the chance to bring in a better guy, I really think they're going to have to suck it up and do it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they might have to. But again, it's tough too because I can't fully evaluate Van Pelt without Drake Maye in the game. Like
That's fair.
if the guy doesn't have his best quarterback playing, how am I supposed to accurately judge him? I mean, we've been sitting there saying that Drake Maye should and probably would be a huge upgrade to Jacoby Brissett for this offense. So I'd like to at least see it at its full force, or at least its full capabilities, as limited as that may be right now. But yeah, I just don't. Again, it just all goes back to what we've been saying, which is we cannot understand why Drake Maye is not out there yet.
Absolutely. And, I grew up as a child of the early 90s, Justin, and I'm going to tell you something. I watched a lot of bad football in 90, 91, 92 for this Patriots team.
Yeah.
When Drew Bledsoe came in 1993, they were 1-11, but they were better, okay, because they could throw the ball. They were better to watch, and he lifted up a lot of the guys on that team, even though they weren't necessarily winning. You could see that he kind of picked them up. That team had a plan too. It was to start Scott Secules at quarterback, who was like a journeyman guy, very similar to Brissett.
Yeah.
Not a great player, kind of kicked around to a few places. When Parcells saw what he had in Bledsoe, he didn't screw around. He put him in the game, and that team had a lot of holes on it as well. But it was all part of the process of development. So I just hope they don't pass up the opportunity to get Dre. I think these valuable game reps for philosophical reasons, or whatever they think they're doing, this so-called plan that they haven't even been able to articulate at any point, that they keep telling us we have a plan. Where is it? It's hard to see. I feel like the time is now.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look, the first quarter of the season is in the books, right? Like, you've played 4 games at this point. You're 1-3. You clearly not only need to turn it around now if you want any hope of playing meaningful football late in the year, but you need something to shake up this offense, shake up this team, and bring a spark to the whole situation. So I think we all know it. We've been saying it, what the clear and obvious choice is to make that happen. Coming back at home against a beaten up Miami team, I think this is, you have to do it. And this I'm not even going to be happy if it happens in the second half. Like this, I want from the get-go. I think he should be the opening drive quarterback.
Well, we're recording on Tuesday at 5:00, and if you look at what Mayo said in his comments on WEI yesterday in his press conference, it does not look like Maye will start this week unless something changes. And I guess we'll see. I think there's still time for it to change, but I it does not look like it. And I will say this last take on the subject, then we're going to talk a little bit about the game. And I want to hear what you think about this. I just alluded to this briefly, but you're already seeing this locker room start to fall apart a little.
Yeah.
Devin Godchow calling out guys for not playing hard on Sunday. Lots of guys going out injured. You cannot ask these guys to buy in if you're not playing the best player. If you're playing for 2025, why shouldn't Kyle Duggar play for himself? Why shouldn't anyone else in that locker room do their own thing and do what's right for them when the Patriots have kicked the can down the road on 2024? He's going to lose the locker room, Justin, if he sticks with Brissett much longer.
I agree 100%. I mean, look, you see this all the time. Teams around the league, they start to get frustrated, especially defenses, when their quarterbacks can't produce, right? We've seen it time and time again. So you know what? You are close to being at that tipping point, right? Like, they got to be really careful, because if they start Brissett in week 5 against the Dolphins and they don't go out and get a win, like you said, that might be the boiling point, right? That might be where things start to spill over.
Because I believe the guys in that locker room, they can see it too. They're on that practice field, and you're hearing the buzz already that Maye's a better player. So, watch out below. This could get really ugly if they don't take some action here. Yep. Okay, Justin, what do you want to say about the game itself on Sunday? I mean, I don't know how much there really is to say. I will give you one take to see what you thought about it. It kind of ties into what we're saying. Not to beat a dead horse, but God, the funny thing about this game, from my perspective, is like, this was not a situation where they went out there and everything went San Francisco's way and they got their ass kicked. I thought the Patriots got their fair share of good luck and good breaks in this game, and they still were completely outclassed. Yeah. I think that is almost as concerning as anything.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, this team, two things come to mind, right? The first thing is that, and look, we keep saying it, but they are down their 3 best defensive players, right? And that does make an impact. But I'm watching this defense against 2 good offenses the last 2 weeks, and it's very reminiscent of, those early years or the first couple years after Brady left, when, or even the last year with Brady. I mean, when we just couldn't get a stop. I mean, good teams exposed us, good offenses exposed us, teams with multiple threats exposed us, and there was just no way for us to compete, right? And that's what it looked like a little bit last week with the Jets and this week with the 49ers. Like, the defense was just outmatched.
I don't know though. Did you think the defense looked that bad? I mean, I really think if you think about how bad the offense was and how bad the position they put the defense in, I didn't think they were that terrible.
I don't think the defense was that terrible. I think that, though, you're going up against a talented 49ers offense at home, right? And, they were unable to get some big stops, right? Guys like Ayuk, guys like Samuel, especially Samuel, breaking free in a couple of big plays. Like George Kittle, catching the ball over 3 defenders in the corner of the end zone. It's like the inability to kind of shut down big playmakers on a team that like San Francisco. That's something that concerns me, because we're not seeing like the shutdown corner effect out of Christian Gonzalez, right? We're not seeing, like, the secondary is, ironically enough, the one level of that defensive unit that doesn't seem to be too injured, right? They seem to be the most healthy out of all 3 levels, right? So I look at it and I say it's kind of discouraging to not be able to see them shut down big game players. And then the other thing that's super concerning to me, and we've been talking about this, another Ramondre Stevenson fumble, a big one. And it's
all 4 games this year.
All 4 games. And it's not just this season. It dates back to his rookie year, big fumbles and big moments. And I don't think he's catching enough heat for it.
I agree, Justin. And I mean, we talked about the contract that they signed him to when they signed him back in the offseason. And I think I had even said, and I think you agreed with me, like, I pretty much liked that they re-signed all their players. He was the one re-signing that I really kind of questioned. And I just don't feel like he is that great of a back. I've always been consistent on that about Ramondre Stevenson. I think he's a good back, but if you listen to Patriots fans, they try to turn this guy into Walter Payton, and he's really not. He's not one of the 10 best back. I mean, maybe near the 10th best back in the league with a fumbling problem. I don't know if that's the kind of guy that you should sign to a long-term deal.
Exactly. And look, in all fairness, if over the course of his career he hasn't had some of those big fumbles, I think we would probably view him a little bit differently, right? Because I do agree he's talented. I do agree he's had some big games, some big moments. But it's just the inconsistency. When you're constantly fumbling, it's really tough to focus on the positive. And when you put it all together, like you said, it probably pushes him out of the top 10 running backs in the league, maybe even down past or around 15. I mean, when you really think about it, there's some good running backs in this league.
I could easily name 10 running backs that I would take over him in a second. And I know he's made some good plays, but I mean, he's a running back. So he's going to make good plays. I mean, I just don't see what's so special about the guy. I think there's good backs all across the league right now.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, those 2 things stood out.
Absolutely. Now, before the half, Justin, or right after the half, I mean, the Patriots were down 20-3 at the half. They come out, they catch a huge break, score a touchdown. Great play call, by the way, by Alex Van Pelt on the play action at Austin Hooper.
Yeah.
Fine. It's a 20-10 game. You've got a whole half of football. Was that Gonzalez that got torched on that deep pass right there to kind of give the 49ers what really was the back-breaking touchdown?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. It's just like the worst possible time.
Right. And again, this was supposed to be your shutdown guy, right? Like the dude that's supposed to lead that defensive backfield. So
I think I mean, I agree that he's not Darrelle Revis, and I've been a critic of him and skeptical. He's been good. I mean, like he's first of all, he's been able to stay on the field for 4 games, which I had concerns about.
Yeah,
and like he's not great, but he's good. Like Patriots fans talk about him as if he's Deion Sanders, which is ridiculous, but he's a good cornerback, starting caliber type. That's a good draft pick still.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's a bad draft pick or a bad player. I do think he's good. I think my expectations, and I don't know, maybe wrongfully so, maybe it was pumped up by the media or, the social media hype, whatever you want to call it. But I was expecting a Darrelle Revis or a Champ Haley, right? Like that's what I felt like we were told we were getting. I'm not saying he's a bad player, and I'm not saying he can't still become a shutdown corner, but to your point, right? Like, how often did you see those guys get torched some of the times like he does? Like Garrett Wilson, Debo Samuel, Brandon. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep. Yep. I mean, look, Patriots fans are desperate, Justin, right now. They're desperate for anything to hang their hat on. And I think that's a little bit of what happened with Christian Gonzalez, where when things fell apart last year, you got no franchise quarterback. You don't really have a lot of, cornerstone pieces on this roster. I think Pats fans looked to Gonzalez and made him into something that he really wasn't yet. And I think in a way that's almost, I would even say, a little unfair to him, because this guy has still played less than a half season of pro football.
That's true.
You know, he's doing okay for a guy that played 8 games, but you know, is he God's gift to the position? No, he's not at all.
No. And when you put it in that perspective, you know, it really is kind of his rookie year still, right? Like he's got what, 7.5 games under his belt, right? Like, so
7.5 games. That's exactly right. Yep.
So.
All right, Justin, anything else you want to say about this debacle of a franchise in New England, or are we ready to move onward to the rest of the NFL, where there was actually some exciting, watchable football this week?
Yeah, let's move on.
Let's move on. Let's get to around the league, and I want to start with this question, which is the Jacksonville Jaguars lost their 9th straight game this weekend. I don't want to say I hate to beat a dead horse, because I love to beat this dead horse. This is my favorite dead horse to beat, because I get to take a victory lap, and you do too. Yes, Trevor Lawrence is a bum, but you know what I find amazing? The Trevor Lawrence, they're like a cult, his supporters in the media, and they just can't accept the fact that the guy's not that good. And now they're turning the spotlight onto Doug Peterson. And so my question for you, Justin, is, will Doug Peterson be the first coach fired this year? That team has lost 9 in a row. They have blown a game they should have won this weekend. They got embarrassed the week before on Monday Night Football. What else do you do if you're Shad Khan but fire the coach?
Yeah, he's got to be up there. I mean, there's a couple guys I could think of that could be right around the same time. But yeah, it's a super, it's a tough situation, because I like Doug Peterson personally. I think he's a much better coach than we're seeing the product from in Jacksonville. I mean, the guy won a Super Bowl. I mean, let's not forget about that.
He won a Super Bowl. Who was his quarterback?
Nick
was that
Foles.
Montana or Nick
exactly,
Foles?
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So
and yet now he's the problem.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, I think this is a team, they just play so flat, so uninspired. And I think it's because they don't believe in their leader. I think Trevor Lawrence is an absolute bum. He is a bust. We've been saying it from day one. I think after his rookie year, I was ready to anoint him into the talented loser club. And you know what? He is not just in the club. He's the president. He's the CEO. He is the most talented loser that I have ever seen. And it's tough to even call him.
That's a bold take, by the way, because who else is in the club? It's Cousins. It's Carr. Is Justin Herbert in the club yet?
No, he's on his way into the club. It was also who was it? It was Cousins, it was Carr, and it was it'll come to me. But yeah, it was my triumvirate, my big 3 of talented losers. Maybe was it Matt Ryan? Oh no, it was Carson Wentz. It was Carson Wentz at the time.
Yep.
But yeah, it was Carson Wentz.
Yeah,
but yeah,
he was still in the league when
exactly. But yeah, so but anyway, I think he's. And it's so funny, like you said, like the meat, like I've never seen him. He's slippery. It's like he's covered in baby oil. The guy, nobody can just hold him accountable. It's always turned back on his team, back on injuries, back on the coaching staff. Like, and I'm starting to hear some whispers of it, but why are we just still at the whisper stage at this point? Why hasn't it just been a full blown sound the alarm from the media? It's a colluded effort at this point. It's because it's in plain sight.
Because it's the old adage, Justin. First impressions count a lot, and this guy was sold to the football world as football Jesus.
He was,
and it's very hard for people to get over that. There is a ton of data. He's in his 4th year as a starter.
Yeah.
He has been a below average quarterback by and large for that entire time, and there is a ton of data that will tell you with your eyes that he is not what he was sold to be. But people have a really hard time getting over that first impression. Trevor Lawrence is the quintessential coach killing player. the guy whose expectation level is far higher than his actual talent level.
Right.
And that is why, he will drag down that franchise. He will drag down whoever comes in there because he is not that good of a player.
No, he's not. And he hasn't been. I mean, looking back on it, the guy is just so underperformed year after year after year, time in, time out. And I said it before, but I'm going to double down on it. I think that contract that he signed will go down as one of the worst in history. I think, we've heard a lot about the Bryce Young being the worst draft pick in history. I don't think so. I think it was Trevor Lawrence because I think the expectations for Lawrence were much higher. And I think that the capital that the Panthers gave up, the draft capital, is far overshadowed by the type of contract that they gave Trevor Lawrence. That's going to hinder them from re-signing young talent, bringing in big free agents. That's a franchise crippling deal, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to regret it.
So let me ask you this, because there was actually buzz and rumors this week that Jacksonville might be in the Bill Belichick market. And I find two things interesting about this. One is they could fire Doug Peterson tomorrow at 0-4 and potentially make a play for Belichick this year. Yeah. And wouldn't that be interesting? But to me, Justin, and this is the second thing, why in God's green earth would Bill Belichick want to go to Jacksonville and deal with, he thought Belichick hated Mac Jones. He's going to hate Trevor Lawrence 10 times more.
Yeah, no, I can't see that working at all. I mean, the Jaguars
never work.
No, especially like the Jaguars culture is so soft. Like they're just a soft group of losers, honestly. Like they're just so disappointing. I cannot see Bill Belichick going there and getting the results that people may think. I think it would be a disaster for him.
All right, let's go on. Let's move on to next game I want to talk about, which is the Saints and the Falcons. This was a terrific game, by the way, and a sneaky good rivalry. Justin, the Atlanta Falcons are 2-2 now.
Yep.
They've only scored 75 points, which is in the bottom half of the league. A lot of talent on that offense.
Yeah.
When are we going to start hearing the calls from Michael Penix? We might have been one young Huku 60 whatever yard field goal away from hearing that rallying cry this week. Yep. But I feel like that's really not that far away.
It's not. And first off, just allow me to say that the talented loser conversation was perfect because we had a head-to-head talented loser battle. Derek Carr versus Kirk Cousins, right? Bowl. Exactly. And it's funny because it to me, like when I watched that game, and I don't know why, maybe it's just because I'm so biased, like it just seemed like both teams were trying to lose the game harder than the other as opposed to win the game more than the other.
Yeah.
It was just you just knew someone was going to blow it. But anyway, yeah, Michael, I think it's not crazy to talk about Michael Penix. The one thing I will say for the Falcons is like, they have some momentum, right? After starting off 0-1, they're now 2-2.
And they really should have beat Kansas City last week.
They definitely should have beat Kansas City.
But they're not scoring a ton of points. And I feel like at some point the finger is going to point to Cousins if they keep kind of being mediocre on offense.
Well, what I don't understand is this is kind of what's driving me crazy is they have a top 10 offensive line in the league, right? Bijan Robinson is up there, top 3 running backs in the league. You got guys like Drake London and Darnell Mooney who were drafted super high, very talented guys. And you have Kyle Pitts who was anointed just like Trevor Lawrence was as the next QB Jesus. He was supposed to be tight end Jesus, right?
Right.
What is missing? It was one thing when they were starting Mariota in Desmond Ridder, and you said, okay, clearly we can understand what the problem is. But like Kirk Cousins, I think his leash is going to be pretty short because he has all the pieces in play. And for someone that is supposed to be as talented as people think he is, and for the money they signed him, I mean, I can't imagine they're not going to, they're going to give him a long leash.
Well, first of all, Young Huku never even has to come in and make that kick. If Kirk Cousins hits Drake London streaking wide open down the field on that final drive, I don't know if you saw that, but he missed the throw.
Yep.
And the reason why that sticks out in my mind is because I am the sucker that took the Falcons -2.5. So
Yeah.
What percentage of NFL games end by 2? Like,
Right.
really? I mean, who wins a game by friggin' 2?
Exactly.
It's like it never happens.
Never.
You take the Falcons -2.5, and you're figuring, okay, if they win the game, you're going to cover the spread. Oh no, they win the game by 2 on
Yeah.
it was so awful. But yeah, Drake London was wide open
Yeah.
for what would have been a big cover for me and an easy win for the Falcons. And Cousins misses that throw. Hey, I'm just saying, if Kirk Cousins continues to miss those throws, and he missed one against the Chiefs too, a very similar play.
Yeah.
If he keeps missing those, get ready. You're going to hear the calls for Penix.
I agree.
All right, Justin, let's go to Green Bay, where the Minnesota Vikings got off to a fast start against the Green Bay Packers and then really needed some like last minute heroics to hang on and win that game. The Vikings now remain one of the 2 undefeated teams in the National Football League. Justin, are the Minnesota Vikings for real? They have beat some good teams. They beat the 3-1 Texans, 49ers, the Packers, and I think they have one soft win in there, maybe the Raiders or something, but like they got 3 quality wins.
They do. I mean, look, it's tough not to call them legit at this point. For some reason, I'm still waiting for the downfall. I'm still waiting for them to come back to earth. Like I'm not fully bought in that this team is as good as they've played the first 4 games. They might be. I mean, Sam Darnold has certainly looked legit. That Brian Flores defense is really good. But I just wonder if at some point they're going to come back down to earth. I don't know. But that's just my gut. I'm not bought into them as an elite NFL team.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why. I mean, it's easy to.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just gonna forget everything Sam Darnold did the last 5 or 6 years,
right?
In the course in the span of 1 month, and now you look at the promo for the game this week, Vikings Jets, and it's Sam Darnold's face, like he is a star. Yeah. And it's like he still has a lot to prove about, I mean, really, I've been impressed. Don't get me wrong, but it's still Sam Darnold at the end of the day. I mean, are we really just going to throw everything out the window that the last 5 years?
I totally agree. Look, this is a team that, you know what, I'm kind of rooting for them. I actually have nothing against this Vikings team. I kind of want them to continue to be good. I think it makes that NFC North even just that much more interesting, because I don't think we were factoring in the Vikings as being a serious contender at all this year. So that's a nice little mix up between them, Green Bay, and Detroit up there. But I can't see them continuing this for 17 games. I can't see them continuing this in the playoffs. I think at some point they come back down to earth. I still think they make the playoffs. They finish a couple games above 500, but I just don't see them as being that elite level team.
Their schedule is not hard. I gotta say, if you look, I mean, they obviously got the Lions twice. The Packers they've already beat. The next game's coming up. The Jets at home, Lions, Rams, Colts, Jaguars, Titans, Bears. I mean, look at that. Colts, Jaguars, Titans, Bears, Cardinals. That's a 5-game stretch where they should win all 5 of those games. I mean, so they could almost just like by default, without really having another quality win, end up in the postseason.
They could. You see this sometimes too, like teams that start out hot that people can't really figure out if they're legit or not. That first loss will tell you a lot, right? Because we've seen teams start off hot, and after that first loss, it's followed by 2, 3, sometimes 4 more, right? Like they just, it totally kind of breaks their rhythm and their momentum, right? And they see some teams, the really good teams, that are able to bounce back the next week, and it's almost going to be a guaranteed win because that's not happening twice in a row, right? I really want to see what happens to this Vikings team after the first time they kind of get punched in the mouth and take a loss.
Yeah, and for all the talk, Justin, about Sam Darnold and the weapons that the Vikings do have on offense, they have only given up 59 points through 4 games, and that's best in the NFC right now, 4th best in the league. It's if you're going to say that you're buying into the Vikings, I really think it's probably because of that defense.
Yeah, 100%. That defense is really, I think, honestly, the defense is a bigger surprise for me than Sam Darnold, if I'm being honest.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they lost their Danielle Hunter, right? Their best player.
And there's just not like if on paper they're not the most talented defensive unit either. So yeah, I was surprised. I actually did have pretty decently high expectations for Sam Darnold. I thought he would come in. I thought he would play well. He's
he
got
might
good
not
weapons.
even have gotten the starting job, Justin. If
I know.
McCarthy would get hurt.
I know, but there was a lot of buzz around him. A lot of buzz being a potential sleeper. So I bought into that a little bit. But I got to say, I definitely did not see this defense. But to be honest, I didn't see him being as good as he is. I thought he could be good. I didn't think he'd be this good. But the defense is definitely throwing me for a loop. I didn't expect that. Wait, hold on, Dennis. Time out. Your audio's off.
How about this?
Yep.
That better?
Yep.
You don't have to delete that. Just roll with it.
Okay.
Okay. I took Justin Jefferson with my 4th pick in the fantasy draft, and literally everyone laughed at me in the room. So I put my money where my mouth was on the fact that I thought Donald would be good enough to get Jefferson the ball, but I didn't think he'd be that good.
Justin Jefferson touchdown each of the 4 games.
Yep, he's been good. He's been good. Okay, Justin, let's talk next about the Broncos and the Jets. This was great viewing. Misery loves company, and yes, the Patriots suck, but it's just great to see that even with the king dead, the Patriots of old gone, and the Jets still, despite their best efforts, continue to futz and fumble and just can't get out of their own way to do anything in this division, even though it's kind of wide open. That was a pathetic performance from Aaron Rodgers and the Jets on Sunday against, I would say, a really not that good Denver team. Okay, a mediocre team, but not great.
Yeah, I love seeing the Jets be bad, as you mentioned, but I got to say that was just, you talk about unwatchable football. That was a disgusting game. And unfortunately, that was on one of the TVs. I saw almost all of it, and it was just, the product was just so bad. I'm so glad the Broncos came back and won, because you know what, the Jets did not deserve to win that game.
The Broncos deserved to win that game, Justin, but they really tried their hardest to hand that game on a silver platter to Rodgers, and when they didn't convert that last first down, and they gave Rodgers one more chance with 1 minute and 40 left, and only needing 30 yards to get into field goal range. I said, "See, they're going to blow it." And then obviously the kicker missed the kick.
Yeah, exactly. So, the Jets still can't get out of their own way. Salah's, that's another guy. I don't think he'll be the first fire, but I think he's in the chopping block. I think he's got a very
definitely on the chopping block. He could well be the first to go.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, especially if it sounds like him and Rodgers have butted head a couple times, right? Going back to, no, they really don't. So, you brought in Aaron Rodgers, we've seen this before. Franchise make moves depending on that franchise quarterback. If Rodgers isn't too happy with him, I wouldn't be shocked to see him gone out the door.
I couldn't agree more, especially if they keep futzing around. And can I throw one other name out there too? And that's Paul Hackett, the offensive coordinator, who has literally tanked everywhere he's been except for when he was with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. At what point does the bullseye turn onto him too when you're this bad? And I think you look at that offense, I'm sorry, independent of quarterback, they have some good weapons they got Garrett Wilson, they got Lazard, they got 2 good running backs. That is not
Mike Williams.
Mike Williams. That is not an offense devoid of talent. There's really no excuse for them not to at least be okay.
I agree completely. And I mean, Rodgers hasn't looked bad. He hasn't looked great, but he hasn't looked bad either.
Well, the Patriots made him look great, but I think we're going to soon find out they're going to have a habit of doing that.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't know. The Jets, they're going to have to figure it out soon, because I think the AFC it's going to be tough. I mean, you got to, I don't know. You hover around 500. You know, it's going to be tough to squeak out a wild card. If that team doesn't make the playoffs, it's going to be considered an abject failure. There are super high expectations for them. I mean, you know.
Well, you said this 3 weeks ago, and you're right. The bar has already moved. The bar has gone from Super Bowl contender for the Jets to can we make a wild card playoff because we're not even the best team in our division because that's Buffalo. Clearly, the bar is already set. If they can't even meet the lower bar, it's going to be ugly.
It is going to be ugly, yeah.
Saleh will definitely be gone this offseason if he even survives the year.
Yeah, and talk about blowing a prime opportunity, you know, against Denver, a game they definitely should have won. And you look at it, you know, Buffalo just took a loss. They're now 3-1. You know, the Patriots and the Dolphins are now 1-3. You win that game, you're 3-1. You're right there competing for first in the AFC East. And just an awful, awful loss. I think they're going to look back. That's going to haunt them.
No doubt about it. Let's move to the Chiefs and the Chargers. This was another game, and I had an eye on it. You know, I was watching the Pats mostly, but this was another game I thought that was kind of tough to watch. Really surprised so far this year with the Chiefs offense. Yes, the Kansas City Chiefs are 4-0, but they just don't look in sync at all in offense. They're somehow finding ways to win. Kudos to them. I think Mahomes statistically has been like the 16th most productive quarterback in the NFL this year. So, like, honestly, to those people that took him high in their fantasy drafts must just be pulling their hair out. Yes, they're 4-0, but it does feel like I don't know if this Chiefs team is built to last.
Well, look, I mean, I'll tell you exactly why. Travis Kelce looks like he's been spending too much time in Hollywood, right? Like he doesn't, you know, he looks like a shell of his former self. You know, Isaiah Pacheco, they lost him, I think, right after week 1. They're not going to have him back. I think it's like week 8, something like that.
Kelsey's 34, Justin, too.
He is.
In all fairness.
And look, I'm not completely saying that's not, you know, that's obviously a factor, his age, but I'm talking about the product in the field. The product in the field is he looks like a shell of himself, right?
He looks like a shell of himself.
He does.
Whatever the reason is. I mean, you can say it's Taylor Swift, fine, maybe it is. I think it's more just the fact the guy's gotten old.
I think that's probably just as much, if not more of a factor. But whatever it is, he looks like a shell of himself. They lost their starting running back. Rashee Rice now feared to potentially be out for the year. Like, they're just what is it? What's his name? Hollywood Brown. That was another weapon they were supposed to have, right? He's out for the year. So you look at it and it's like, okay, this team really doesn't have the firepower that we thought they were going to have.
Absolutely not. And I don't think Xavier Worthy. I know he's had 2 touchdowns. He had a great catch this week, but I don't think he's really. I'm looking up his stats right now to see. I don't feel like he's really quite ready to carry the load for that team. I mean, he only has 9 catches for 154 yards in 4 games. So he might be, I mean, dare I throw this out there? It's way premature. Is it a little Tyquan Thornton thing going on? I don't know. You know, with him, I wonder about that. I did love that pick when they made it, but he's not doing much so far. And I feel like if you're going to be put in that situation with Mahomes, you'd think you'd be showing something.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, we still got to see a little bit more. He's obviously going to get a chance now, right? You got, you know, especially with Rashee Rice being out, like Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown. I mean, he should de facto be the number 1 go-to guy in that offense right now, right? So we're really going to see what he's made out of, I think, and you know, these over the coming weeks. But yeah, the Chiefs definitely still give me cause for concern. At the end of the day, they have a good defense. They have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I'll never write them out of contention for anything.
Oh, absolutely not.
And I got to tell you what, too, because you know that I had heard a lot of rumblings this past week about, you know, Chargers money line. People are all over the Chargers. And I also didn't understand the spread either, right? Because the Chargers are missing like their 4 best players. And so when the Chiefs were down 10-0. I got to tell you, that was the easiest live bet I've ever made in my life. That was free money at that point. You know,
what was the spread when the Chiefs were down 10-0? What did you get it at?
When the Chiefs were down 10-0, I got them at like plus 120.
Okay, so you took them on the money line.
So I took them on the money line, and still, even down 10, they were barely plus money. But I was like, you know what? That's free money.
So I took the Chargers with the 7 points, and it was kind of a tough beat for me, obviously, with the Chiefs scoring that late touchdown to go to the push. I really needed a win in that 4:00 slot because I was 0-3 going into that. I took the Falcons, I took the Steelers, which I was wrong about, and then for some godforsaken reason, I convinced myself to take the Rams. A live bet when they were up like 3-0 or something, and I got a good spread, and I was like, I think they'll win this game. I'm going to take it, and it just all fell apart. All three of those games were really like kind of right close, but nothing. So I had basically shit luck. I mean, not to say whatever, but there's sometimes you make a bet and you get blown out of the water. And for me on Sunday, it wasn't that. It was just like I'm one score away in four games, and all 4 times the score didn't go my way. But I had the Chargers with the points. It was kudos to the Chiefs for pulling it off. They always seem to find a way to beat that LA team.
They do. They are the Chargers kryptonite. I mean, I think Herbert's won one matchup maybe.
The Chargers might be their own kryptonite, but yeah, your point.
But yeah, it's a very lopsided. People like to talk about Herbert versus Mahomes. There's no rivalry there. It's
there's no comparison. Yeah. That's absurd. To even put them in the same sentence. We got to talk, Justin, about the Washington Commanders. We really haven't talked about them in a couple weeks. I would say one of the stories of the league has been Jaden Daniels so far.
I agree.
Clearly going to be the favorite for the Rookie of the Year at this point, completing over 80% of his passes. Commanders are 3-1. In a sense, I thought this was a bit of a statement game for the Commanders because they outclassed the Cardinals. And I think that, going into that game, I think most of us would have said these teams are on similar planes, right? I don't think we really respect the Commanders as a viewing public yet.
No.
I think they kind of made a statement by really blowing Arizona out of the water in their building.
I think they did too. That the Commanders' defense looked pretty decent. And Jaden Daniels in that offense looks really good. I mean, they are, I think, my biggest surprise so far. And I guess it's kind of crazy to say you're surprised. I mean, they got the number 2 overall quarterback that, and that was my guy. I love Jaden Daniels. I thought him. I did. I thought he was going to be the best one. And he's playing the best. I mean, the guy is just having an immediate impact. It took until like the second quarter of the Cardinals game, for them to punt the ball for the first time in like 3 weeks.
They haven't punted in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
they went 3 weeks without punting.
I mean, what Crazy. More? And you're 3-1. You've won a bunch of games that you were dogs in. I mean, you've looked like this. I mean, what more could you want from your rookie quarterback at this point?
Right, exactly. And all I can think of, and I think by all accounts, as much as the Patriots were all in on Drake Maye, I think they probably would have taken Jaden Daniels if he had been there when they picked. I guess we'll never know, but I just think back to that frickin' Pittsburgh and Denver game last year and that little weenie Bailey Zappi, just like willing them to victory, and Chad Ryland hitting all these huge, all these huge kicks, the complete antithesis of what he was for the majority of his time. And it's just like, that if that could cost them, if Jaden Daniels works out and Drake Maye doesn't, oh my God.
Yeah, 100%. That's going to be one of those big what ifs. One of the great what ifs of sports, right? If the Patriots just lost one more freaking game, that was tough. That was Bill Belichick's parting gift for us.
Yeah, exactly. His parting gift, his parting FU to the Crafts. Yeah. All right, and then taking to Baltimore next. Look. I loved the Ravens in this game. It was my bet of the week. I didn't love any of those other games I took, by the way. I just took them because you're like, all right, I'm going to be sitting and watching football. I'm going to take them, right? And I hate it when that happens, when you love a game, but you take a few other games and you end up losing them, right? And then the game you love ends up covering and you're like, I was stupid. I should have just stuck with my gut. That's exactly what happened to me this week. I loved Baltimore. I thought it was one of my bets of the year. It's so early in the season. Baltimore struggled. It just felt to me like this was Baltimore's spot at home. Buffalo isn't going 17-0. I thought this was a game, if take the big picture view, this is a very kind of game where Buffalo's probably going to lose, in the grand scheme of things. And sure enough, Baltimore just blew them out of the water.
They did. And honestly, on both sides of the coin, it was what I was kind of waiting for, right? I was waiting to see like Baltimore's like statement game, right? Because I think they were a lot better than they started the season out. And I was also waiting for the Buffalo Bills to come back down to earth a little bit because I think they were getting a little too big for their britches. So you know what? That was nice on both sides. And I think it showed. Look, the Ravens are legit. They might have got off to a slow start, but that's one of the best teams in the AFC. And I think it shows that the Bills are, while they were a good team, they're not elite.
I'm not holding it against the Bills. I'm not going there yet. I'm just going to say Sunday night, coming off a Monday night game, going on the road to another team stadium on a Sunday night. I had a tough loss. Yes. Game got out of hand. Yes. I really feel like if those two teams met again in January or February, I still would call it a 50-50 game.
It could definitely be a 50-50 game, but I think the point is that they leveled out a little bit, right? I think the Dolphins not the Dolphins. The Ravens started playing up to their potential, and I think the Bills came back down to earth a little bit. I think they're both two very good teams. I will say this,
even though the Bills are 3-1 and the Ravens are 2-2, if you're asking me to make a power ranking, I'm still ranking the Ravens right now over the Bills. Like I do think they have more probably postseason viability.
Yeah.
As much as I'm not down on Buffalo like you are, and I've said it all year, I'll say it again. I mean, Josh Allen is a brilliant player who I think can win any game on any given Sunday against anyone. But I do think the Ravens, even though they got off to a slow start, are hitting their stride, are probably more built to last.
I agree. I totally agree with that. I think if you're making a power ranking, I think the Ravens are easily in my top 3 in the AFC right now.
Do you even want to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, Justin, this week? Because I just feel like the conversation will be exactly the same that we had last week. But I just will add this. I think Nick Sirianni is 3-8 in his last 11 games. Yep. So when we talk about other coaches that might be the first coach fired, he's another name we should at least mention on the list.
He is 100% at the top of that list, and rightfully so. That's an organization that moved on from Doug Peterson after like a year, but like 2 years post Super Bowl.
Totally.
Let's not forget that. And look at everything they've invested into this team. Big money contracts for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, right? They've drafted defense. They've brought in Saquon Barkley, big contract, right? Like they got supposedly the franchise quarterback. They're not playing around. Nick Sirianni, he will be very lucky to make it out of this year, and I don't think he does.
What do you make of the fact that Jalen Hurts continues to turn the ball over? We talked a lot about Trevor Lawrence leading the league in turnovers in his 4 years in the league. Yeah. Jalen Hurts actually leads the league in turnovers for the last 2 seasons. I think he has something like 27 turnovers in his last 28 games or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's tough because, this year he's been hampered, right? He hasn't had AJ Brown or Devontae Smith for a while. I mean, that's tough. You lose your top 2 options, but still, nevertheless, he does have a turnover problem. And I think that's one of the reasons why we always see the Eagles kind of never reach their full potential.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to put that on Sirianni. I'm sorry. Maybe I don't know. It just, you know what, Justin? It just feels like there's no chemistry there. I don't know what it is.
There's no chemistry. Jalen Hurts,
quarterback.
Jalen Hurts. I mean, this is no secret. It's public knowledge. Jalen Hurts is not a Nick Sirianni fan. They do not get along. Yeah. So who do you think's going to win that battle in terms of who stays, right, and who goes?
I mean, it was 2 years ago that Jalen Hurts was outplaying Patrick Mahomes, arguably in a Super Bowl,
right.
and here we are 2 years later, and I mean, they are, sub 500 in their last 10 games. So.
Yeah.
We'll see which way their season goes. Anything from the 2 games Monday night? I'll say this. I love the Monday night doubleheader. Terrific. I got the 2 TVs going downstairs. Love it.
Yeah, I like it too. Was this the last week of it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like the Monday night doubleheader. 2, I mean, one game they couldn't have been more polar opposites, right? One game was just 2 good teams battling it out, like high flying offenses, lot of scoring, and another team was just 2 stuck in the mud, just bottom of the league organizations right now.
How have the Miami Dolphins only scored 45 points? Okay, I get it. 2 is out, but that is, I mean, they still got Jalen Waddle, they still got Tyreek Hill, they still got A-Chain. you're scoring 10 points a game.
And Mike McDaniel is supposed to be this offensive mind, right? Like I really don't know. I know Skylar Thompson's nothing to write home about. I mean, Huntley looked a little bit better, but not much. I mean, that's an organization that you want to talk about flaws in terms of preparing your team for success. You know what's happened to Tua in the past. You know the re-injury risk. You know what happens when he's not able to play, right? And how volatile his health is. How do you not bring a more competent quarterback in there than Skylar Thompson or Tyler Huntley? Like, come on.
Agree 1,000%. And we praised them last year when they brought Mike White in as insurance for Tua, and then they let him walk out the door.
Yep.
Yes, Tua made it through last year without a concussion. In retrospect, that was kind of miraculous. We all knew the circumstance going into the year. So how do you do it? And you look at a guy, I'll tell you the guy I think would be the perfect fit for Miami. Gardner Minshew would have been the perfect backup for that system, that team. There was probably 5 or 6 other guys that would be an upgrade over what they ultimately went with. And it's paralyzed them.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's been really tough and unfortunate for them because, I think that's a team that's slowly starting to not only lose the locker room, but I think we're going to see more Mike McDaniels in the hot seat too. Everybody talks about him like he's anointed as a great
all these
coach,
guys, Justin, that signed big contracts this offseason. You know how those are like those 5 or 6 contracts right as the season was opening. It was Dak Prescott, Mike McDaniels, Trevor Lawrence. I'd have to go through them all. A lot of them have struggled.
Yes. Yeah. Big time.
Yeah. You'd say McDaniels might be the first coach fired, but they just paid him like a huge sum of money to be and extended him. So who knows?
Right.
All right. And then last thing before we move to look ahead for next week. Look, Detroit Lions, America's team. Hey, that was an impressive performance last night. Jared Goff did not throw an incomplete pass. He was 18 for 18 throwing the ball. Love to see it. I'm officially rooting for the Detroit Lions.
Me too. That was a nice game for them. I think they're proving that they are, in my opinion, I think they're the class of the NFC. And I think they're one of the best teams in football right now, arguably the best team in football. I think that's going to be a really tough team to stop come January and December.
It will be, and I'm just looking to see right now when they actually play the Vikings, and it looks like that first game is coming up on October 20th in a few weeks. That's going to be
nice.
Probably a terrific matchup at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. I think we already know the Lions are legit, right? I don't think anybody's questioning that at this point. That'll tell us if the Vikings are legit.
All right, Justin, let's take a little look ahead to next week around the league. Start in Minnesota, right, with the Jets at the Vikings. Vikings are a 2.5 point favorite. You have any thoughts on this line?
So you said it's in Minnesota?
In Minnesota.
I don't know. That could be a tough game. I think that could be a Jets come bring you back down to earth game.
I kind of agree. I kind of like the Jets in this game on the money line.
I do too. I think, look, you're getting the Jets off of a bad loss. If that team has any sort of leadership and culture, they're going to be coming with a vengeance. And the last thing you want to do is let Sam Darnold make you look stupid after you let him go.
And Aaron Rodgers certainly has familiarity playing in Minnesota and familiarity with the Vikings. I think, so that's another little factor there. It's just like, look, I think a lot of the square money, I think, will go on the Vikings in this spot because they're at home. The Jets just look pathetic against the Broncos. Yep. We learn every week it's a week-to-week league. I feel like this is a sneaky good spot for the Jets.
It is. And just look at that line. I mean, Minnesota only being a 2.5 point favorite tells us that Vegas thinks the Jets are 0.5 point better, right? They get that. Yeah. You got to remember that 3 point swing for home teams in the NFL. So that's Vegas saying they think the Jets are the slight favorites.
And they love to, when they throw that 2.5 out there, they're just begging you to take that favorite. They
Yes,
want you to take the Vikings.
they do.
Because they want you to say, oh, the Vikings will win by a field goal. It's just like it's classic Vegas rope-a-dope.
Yep.
So I don't know if I'll take that game, but I'm certainly not going to fall for that. All right, how about this one? Ravens -3 at the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, Ravens coming off a huge win at home in a night game, traveling to a division rival who really hasn't looked that good. But I felt like the Bengals needed that kind of grinded out, choppy win they got this week against the Panthers, where they actually did start to show, maybe for the first time this year, some signs of coming together on the offensive side of the ball. I feel like this might be a spot for the Bengals, Justin, getting 3 at home. What do you think?
By one token, I look and unless that Bengals defense is healthy, they're missing a couple of big pieces up front. I see them having a tough time keeping Lamar Jackson contained. But I also, I think back and I'm a Joe Burrow dynasty owner, right? I've had him on my team since he came into the league. He is a Raven killer. He is.
Yes.
He goes off against the Baltimore Ravens at home, coming off with a little bit of momentum. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase both look like they're settling in nicely after kind of being absent at the beginning of the season. So it could be a very sneaky spot for the Bengals. And that 3-point spread is really the most telling thing to me.
Yeah, this might be a money line play, to take the Bengals on the money line and just ditch the points and take that plus 125, which is what I think it is right now. And,
yeah.
Because the Bengals, I think, will have a great chance to win this game outright.
I agree.
All right, what about Buffalo at Houston? When I first saw this line, the Bills favored by 1, traveling to the Houston Texans this week. My initial instinct was to pound Buffalo. Don't overreact to the bad game in Baltimore. Buffalo's still a great team. Houston's kind of been choppy. I've had a day or two to sit on this. A lot of money is pouring on Buffalo, by the way. The more I think about it, the more I think Houston might actually surprise us here and sort of maybe distinguish themselves a little bit and prove that they are the kind of team that many of us expected them to be in 2024.
Yeah, I think so. I'm on Houston. I like Houston. I think they're still kind of figuring things out, but they have a very good team. They have a great coach, and I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the AFC. Near the end of the year, I think this could be a big statement win for them. And look, the Bills just got the Bills just got embarrassed. Look, the Bills are one of those teams where we've seen them lose games in bunches, right? Like once they kind of hit that downturn. Who knows? Maybe they come back down to earth and the Texans.
Could you legitimately hold it against the Bills if they go to Baltimore and lose, and then go to Houston and lose? I feel like those are 2 tough games on the road against good teams. That I don't know,
they're two very tough games. And again, I'm not saying the Bills aren't a good team. I just don't think they're elite. I don't think they're the class of the AFC. And I think a lot of people coming into week 4 kind of viewed them as one of the best teams in football. And I'm not there with them yet. I think they're a very good team. I don't know.
Yeah. And in a sense, to a national audience 2 weeks ago, Buffalo just made a huge statement themselves and beat the bag out of what we know is a pathetic Jacksonville team. So I feel like the smart thing is to not overreact to that one game where Jacksonville clearly didn't come to play. And maybe you're right. I mean, maybe we are kind of overrating Buffalo just a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, man, the dogs are barking this week. Let me give you another one, okay? And maybe this is crazy. The Raiders are 2.5-point underdog going to the Denver Broncos. I know the Broncos have won 2 good games in a row. This is another division game. Gardner Minshew is probably the best quarterback in this game right now. I feel like the Raiders will be able to score points. I like the Raiders with 2.5 points. I mean, I hate to bet a bad team ever, but I don't know. I just think that maybe this is not a bad spot to play the Raiders.
All right. I think this might be the first one we disagree. I like Denver for this week. I really like, honestly, I really think Bo Nix has a lot of potential. There's something about the guy that I just feel like he's going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. And I feel like he's going to keep getting better as the season goes along. Uh, and I think that Denver team has shown that they have a pretty good defense. And this Raiders team, let's not forget Max Crosby is injured, right? I don't know if he's going to play next week. That'd be huge. Even if he plays, he might not be at 100%, right? Devontae Adams just officially requested a trade. I think that there's a lot going on internally with this Raiders team, and I just think between the Denver defense and Bo Nix getting better each week, I think they find a way to win this one.
You might be right. I mean, it's always you never want to bet a team that's a bad team. You never want to bet a team that's having locker room turmoil, and the Raiders probably both have that right now. So maybe this is a spot to fade the Raiders. My initial reaction was, look, can Gardner Minshew outplay Bo Nix? Can Gardner Minshew outscore Bo Nix? I mean, as much as Bo Nix looked a little bit better the last 2 weeks, it's not like Denver's winning with their offense. I mean, realistically, how many points are the Raiders going to need to win this game? Like, if the Raiders can hang 17 points and you're getting 3 points, I mean, you got to like those odds. I don't know.
Yeah, no. Look, the Raiders are one of those teams too that like they always kind of, there's a couple teams in the NFL year after year that always seem to they call them the bet busters, right? They always seem to win games they shouldn't, lose games lose games that they shouldn't. It's just it's crazy. So I could easily see them sneaking in here as dogs and coming out with the win.
A couple more interesting ones, then we're going to wrap it up. Dallas is a 2.5 point underdog at Pittsburgh. This is an interesting game.
Yeah, it is.
Because Prescott is far and away better quarterback than Justin Fields. I'll tell you something, Justin. I've been a skeptic of Justin Fields as a quarterback. Don't think he's been a very good quarterback. Didn't want him here in New England at all, for example. I feel like he may have played his best game as a pro on Sunday against the Colts. And I know that he only threw for 170 yards, but what I saw from him was the ability to throw downfield, which I don't know if I've ever seen from him at any point consistently, and run. And, I don't know. I just felt like Pittsburgh was able to stay in that game because of Justin Fields' playmaking ability. Now, he also made a huge turnover that you could argue cost them that game. Ultimately, fine, classic Justin Fields, whatever. Right. I don't know. I just feel like this game collides a competing thing where the better quarterback, Dak Prescott, versus the better team in Pittsburgh.
I got to tell you, I really have no clue which way I lean on this one. It really is. It's an interesting game. It's an interesting line. I think the Cowboys. If the Cowboys defense was as good as I think they sometimes get credit for, I would lean with the Cowboys and the points. But that defense has really had problems. In Justin Fields, he can take advantage of you. He really can with his legs and whatnot. If the Cowboys defense gets lazy, that could slip away from them because look, the Pittsburgh defense is legit. So the Cowboys will have trouble scoring points.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. Like this is the kind of defense the Cowboys I think really struggle with.
Right. So I don't know. You know what? I can't make a call one way or another yet. I'm gonna have to see how I feel around game time. But it's a very interesting matchup. I'm actually super interested to watch this one because
then the Monday night game, Justin, Saints +5 at the Chiefs. I know that 5 sounds like a big number because the Chiefs haven't been scoring a ton of points. The Saints defense, okay, we all believe they're good. This is still the New Orleans Saints. 3 or 4 weeks ago, no one would have, in their right mind, picked them in this game. The Chiefs look a little cold on offense, granted, but these are the kind of games Derek Carr consistently barfs on his shoes in throughout his career. My take on this game, I think the Chiefs will blow the Saints out of the water on Monday night.
Yeah, if this was a Sunday at 1 o'clock game, I think I'd take the Saints. But primetime football, Derek Carr, I think he's probably going to throw up all over himself against a good Chiefs defense. And is it in Kansas City?
Yeah, in Kansas City, in Arrowhead.
Yeah.
I'd feel very different about this game if it was in New Orleans.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's going to be a tough one.
And then last but not least, we got to ask Dolphins at Patriots. The Patriots are a 1-point favorite. The Miami Dolphins are the only team in the league that has scored less points than the Patriots. Yeah. This game could be a real snooze fest. Bring a magazine if you're going down to Foxborough. Bring a book. Make sure your phone is charged, whatever. What do you expect out of this Dolphins Patriots matchup this week, Justin? Which way are you thinking on this one?
I like the Patriots this weekend. I do. I think as bad as our offense has been there, to your point, their offense has been pretty bad too. And I think this is a good spot for us. I really do. I think this is a prime opportunity to get a second win, keep your season somewhat alive at 2-3, and try to build a little bit of momentum. Jacoby Brissett, he should be as motivated as anybody else. He should have a fire lit under him. I mean, everybody's kind of calling for his head. Drake May's kind of, right on his tail. This guy should come out and hopefully have a good game.
Who is the better quarterback in this game? Is it Tyler Huntley or is it Jacoby Brissett? Now, I know Huntley just got picked off the scrap heap and brought to Miami, but I think you could argue that Huntley's a better quarterback.
I'm going to give it like 51-49 Brissett. I'll give Brissett the edge, but the fact that we're sitting here talking about the third option for the Dolphins being on par, if not better than the first option for the Patriots, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's a fair point. Well, we'll see. I mean, I say from a gambling perspective, one of the smartest things that I've done this year is I've just stayed away from the Patriots.
Yeah. And
for years, I think so many of us got in that habit of taking the Pats because you're going to root for them. And let's face it, more often than not, they came through for those individuals over the Brady and Belichick run over the years, and getting out of that mentality of just, hey, I'm going to take the Pats because I'm rooting for them. It has been difficult the last couple of years, to be honest with you, because they've been terrible against the spread. This is a game to fade, in my opinion. I'm not touching this game from a gambling perspective with a 10-foot pole. I think it will probably be a field goal game either way, 13-10 kind of game.
Yeah.
Going to depend on who gets the lucky turnover or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to be a low scoring affair. Hopefully the Patriots will be able to eke it out. I mean, the Dolphins, they just seem so like, I don't know, just so beaten down right now. They're starting to have problems in the locker room too. You saw Tyreek Hill erupt last night on the sidelines. Yeah, I don't know. Give me the talented team that hasn't completely, or no, sorry, give me the not talented team that's not completely ready to tear each other's heads off, than the not talented team that's ready to tear each other's heads off.
I mean, you could argue both the Patriots and the Dolphins are two teams that just like really aren't playing very hard right now, and both have probably major locker room issues.
Exactly. So I don't know. I'll take the Patriots, but really nothing would shock me.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, man. Okay. Any other thoughts about this week, last week? Anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, that's about it.
All right. I want to thank everyone that listened to this edition of the Ultimate Patriots / Dr. Football podcast. Enjoy the week. This time of year, there are 2 days without football, Tuesday and Wednesday. So get through these next couple days. Come back. We'll cover it all when we come back next week to record. Have a great week, everyone.